Are you ready to see your hat?
I think so. I'm not sure, honestly.
Oh my god. Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Hi all my beautiful snowflakes and welcome to this Furina hat tutorial. If you go down to the description box below, you will find a link to download her patterns for free. The patterns does include the hat, the details and a cut out order. And if you have any problems with the printout, do not hesitate to reach out to me either here on YouTube in the comment section, through my email, or contact me directly on Instagram. We will try to figure it out together. Without further ado, let's get into the tutorial. We will start out with cutting the patterns out, and you can use a knife or a scissor. I do recommend to use a knife to most of the pieces. Then go ahead and cut the patterns out on your chosen cardboard, and then proceed to cut out the fabric as well. Add seam allowance to the brim and top. Check the box for more information. Tape your crown pattern to the cardboard and cut the lines and triangles. Then we will go ahead and score the lines. Go ahead and look at your cut out order for more guidance. We will first score the blue and red dashes along the squares and triangles. The blue dash means you need to score on the back side, the one that is facing down on the table. The red dash is the front side, the side that is looking at you. Take your knife and a ruler for support. Make sure you adjust your knife so it can't cut all the way through. If your knife can't do that, then be careful with the pressure. Do not cut through the cardboard. Then we move on to the vertical dashes. But before we score those, take a look at your cardboard. If your cardboard have big enough waves and is thick enough, it will be a lot easier to score in the waves. My cardboard was too thin, so I would just follow the dashes on my pattern. After that, you gently bend the cardboard so it can take a nice round shape. Then we move to scoring the dashes on the brim, and I do recommend to score the lines with a smaller gap between each line than the one that is indicated on the pattern. We will then connect the crown with a glue gun, and then go test if we can get the brim over the crown. I had to separate the crown again to cut 1 mm off for it to get inside the brim. Once we have checked if it fits, we will then separate them, and then we will attach a wire with a glue gun around the edge on the brim. And if you have chosen a thicker cardboard than me, you might be able to push the wire inside of the waves along the edge. Once we have glued the wire around the brim and maybe secured it a bit more with tape, it is time to glue on the fabric. And a quick disclaimer, glue the brim and the crown together before adding fabric. I forgot to do that, so you will see me having to remove the fabric to glue them together. Otherwise, take your fabric contact cement, a piece of cardboard or your silicone brush and start applying contact cement to the bottom of the brim. And then you just apply the fabric. And this was here I noticed that I should have assembled the brim and crown before adding fabric, so watch me painfully do that. Moving on, we add fabric to the crown before adding the top fabric to the brim, and I was running out of contact cement, so I used it sparingly. You can use one of your score lines as your starting guard line. Make sure that the fabric is smooth and even all the way around. Once you reach the end, wait with cutting the extra fabric off before the glue has dried. In the meantime, we can prepare for the top fabric to the brim by cutting the extra fabric off of the bottom fabric. To make sure the fabric doesn't thread, burn the edge. After that, the glue should have dried enough for us to cut the remaining fabric off. Be careful not to cut any of the triangles off. Then proceed to burn around the edge. Don't forget the top fabric to the brim. When it came to gluing the top fabric to the brim on, I prefer to first add the fabric on the brim before adding glue. Then while the glue dries, let's add fabric to the top. Then make some small squares by cutting lines around the fabric so it can be glued to the underside. Leave it to completely dry before gluing the top to the crown. I then found this fold-over elastic from my Victor Nikki photo costume from 2017. I didn't know I had this, but it works perfectly for the edge around the brim and top, so I went ahead and glued that on with a glue gun off camera. With the hat now assembled, we can move on to cutting out the crest. I use some double-sided tape to attach the crest to the top, and do make sure you put it on in the right direction. For the glue I use wood glue, but any clear glue should be fine, and then I use the brush to apply it. Once you are done applying glitter or whatever material you plan to use for the crest, make sure to remove the padding before the glue completely dries. I left it on and that resulted in me not being able to remove it. So my blue glitter spots had some paper around it that I couldn't remove. I had to take a black marker to paint it so it wouldn't be noticeable. Luckily the gold glitter did cover it up in the end. This time I will attach the crest with needles instead of tape. Don't forget to lay the blue parts and extra parts back on before adding gold. Then once you're done, remove the pattern immediately, and if there should be any paper left from the pattern, you can take a tweezer or a needle to carefully remove it. Then set the hat aside to dry, cause then we will move on to make the details on the hat. I'm making my details out of EVA foam, but you can make them out of cardboard as well, or something else. If you choose to use EVA foam with the same thickness as me, here's how to cut it out without ripping it. I then added a rhinestone as the extra detail, but you can also use EVA foam. We will then proceed with the other piece, and when it came to marking out the kite shape in the middle, I just used a needle to dot holes along the line, and then use a pencil to redraw it. To angle and round the edges, you can either do it by hand using sandpaper or use a Dremel if you have one. I have access to a Dremel, so I will be using that. I take a piece of PVC and some adhesive spray and spray a thin layer on the PVC. Then I stick my piece onto it so I can Dremel the edges without it moving. For this piece, the edges are going to be sanded into an angle. And for this piece, we will round the edges. I will also flatten the lower part on the front of this piece so it will lay closer to the other piece once we assemble them. Once I'm done, I go over it with sandpaper by hand if I have missed a spot. I also added some rhinestone to this piece to give it more dimension. We will then go ahead and prime all the pieces, and I use wood glue for that. After it has dried, we will then assemble these two pieces together, and I use contact cement for that. Then go ahead and paint it. I first used a silver spray paint because that was the lightest paint I had, but I recommend using a white as your base color. Then I painted it gold. I then glued all the pieces onto the hat off camera with contact cement, and I also added the blue rhinestones. I also forgot to mention that the original hat had some balls or beads on top of the details, but I did not have anything to make that, so I left it as a task for my friend once she receives the hat, cause the hat is a gift for her. Moving on to adding the ribbon, I'm gluing my two ribbons together with a glue gun, leaving just a few dots here and there so the blue ribbon is still pretty loose and flexible. The blue ribbon is also a bit longer than the silver one. The same goes for when I glue the ribbon onto the hat. I'm not adding glue all the way around, only a few dots here and there. I'm connecting the two ends where the bow is going to be. Then before I make the bow, I'm going to make the piece of cloth that sticks up from the bow, plus the one that hangs from the hat. I'm using this beautiful fabric that once was a nightgown. Then I take some wire and fold it into a square with a side missing, which is the bottom. Then I sew the fabric together with the wire. Then once I'm done sewing, I will then bend it into shape, and I'm just going to show you the whole clip on how I bend it because I really don't know how to explain it. But yeah, you should have something like this. When it comes to the hanging fabric, I drew this shape and I don't have any measurements on it, and as you can see on the paper, I drew it many times until I was satisfied with the size of it. So yeah, I will leave the sizing in your capable hands. After I cut out the fabric, I folded it, then I went ahead and ironed it. That didn't do much, but I did it anyway, and then I hand sewed the top, just giving it a few stitches so it will hold its shape. Then we move on to making the bow, and again I don't have any measurements cause it's up to you on how big you want them to be. I cut two ribbons off in the same length, and then I folded each of them to meet in the middle, as you can see in the video. Then I glue them together so it will become one bow. It's a super easy way to make bows so you don't have to struggle with tying them yourself. Then for the bow in the back, I do the same with folding it and glue the ends in the middle. But this time, instead of gluing two pieces, I would take some wire and wrap it around the middle so it will look like a bow. You can also try to glue it together in the middle. For the brooch, I found these incredible, beautiful, well, they say sticker on the paper, but let's just call them brooches. I took the one I liked the best and added a blue and silver rhinestones, which I hearted with UV racing. And for the back bow, I just added a blue rhinestone. I then glued the standing black fabric onto the front bow. And then I off-camera glued the two bows and the hanging fabric onto the hat, and then I glued two clips on the bottom of the brim so the hat can be attached to the wig. And then we have reached the end of this tutorial. Hi! I'm so nervous right now. Are you ready to see your hat?
I think so. I'm not sure, honestly.
Oh my god. Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Wow!
Yeah, it turned out like this. So
it turned out so good.
yeah,
That's very nice.
the only thing you need to do yourself is, there's balls around.
But yes.
Yeah, I have been to 3 different stores. I even went to Germany to look for some. I couldn't find any. So I will leave that up to you. I then went ahead to explain the materials and how I made it to her, and then we talked for the rest of the evening. But anyway, this is how I made Furina's hat with scrap materials. I only went out to buy the ribbons and the blue rhinestones, and then I was super lucky to find these brooches as well. The rest was something I already had, and I did make that clear to my friend that it wasn't going to be super stunning nor look identical to Furina's hat. But honestly, I think it turned out quite great, and this is just one way to make it, and I would love to see your version of the hat. So if you do end up using my patterns or follow my tutorial, do share. It's an absolute joy and motivation for me if you will share your work with me. If you have any tips to something in the video that can be done in a different way, do share with the rest of us in the comment. Thank you so much for watching. It really means a lot to me that you took time out of your day to watch this video. Much appreciated. I hope to see you again in another video, and to all of you who already are part of the Snowflake family, see you next time.